Let's jump into 408 Garfield, Nunn, Colorado. All right, you guys saw the video. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it and then come back over because it's a big video that's trending on, it's viral right now. All right, it's about this lady who is standing out in front of her house talking to this news anchor about how her husband died 16 years ago and she's been in the home without paying a mortgage payment and had multiple attorneys that basically couldn't get her to pay the loan to keep the house that her husband bought.
That is unreal, right? Who would buy a home sight unseen with an occupant still in it?
Tori McMeechan is the occupant.
House that her husband bought. But we're going to break down that a lot more in depth. We're going to actually tell you the truth about what's going on with this. And first and foremost, guys, I'm not a lawyer, all right? But I am a state licensed realtor in California, and I do have firsthand personal experience in my personal life with this exact process, so I know exactly what is going on, where the mishaps should have been in place, and then we're going to break down and give you the truth. That way you guys aren't just buying into the rapidly viral sensation of the comment box that is exploding. But if you do have comments, drop it in the comments because I love to get them. If I missed anything and you're a legal expert, please give me your feedback. So what it was this is kind of the last final page of the legacy mortgage-backed era, the mortgage-backed securities era. And in simple terms, depending on how old you are, you guys remember that back in 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we had a massive run-up in the housing market. You guys have heard about it. Commentators have talked about it. It was a bubble, okay? So basically, if you had a state ID, if you had a job, and you had the ability to sign a signature, you could buy a house, okay? After you bought that house, you could go do the same thing and buy a vacation home or an investment property. And what it did was it inflated the housing market to the point where it made no economic sense, and that bubble finally bursted. It was such a big bubble. The foreclosures were in such large amounts. There were so many foreclosures that it basically rewrote the legality of how we acquire mortgages today. All right. Without going into too much depth, I don't want this to be a finance episode, but I want to tell you that it was literally the biggest catastrophe in the real estate business and for homeowners and for this false sense of equity that people thought they had in their homes. And it was so big, so bad that if you bought your house at the top of this bubble, depending on where you're at in the United States, your house could potentially be worth just that same amount over almost 20 years later. I mean, that's how long it took for this whole thing to kind of recalibrate. All right. And obviously, I'm in California, Southern California. The prices obviously here are much higher. But if you look at the whole U.S., some places of the U.S. are now just returning to that 2009 peak. All right. To just put everything in perspective so you understand. All right. That is how long and how big this thing was. So what does that have to do with this lady in, what's her address? 408 Garfield Avenue, Nunn, Colorado. So basically, like, the reason everybody is flocking to this video is because she's kind of standing outside. She's like, yeah, my husband died, 16, 17 years ago. I've hired attorneys to try to make this right. And, I want to pay the loan. I can pay the loan. And, it's kind of like feeding off the sympathy aspect of, this poor lady losing her house, right? And I can sympathize with this idea, right? Now, the reality and what really happened, and this is all public data. This is nothing, out of a bird's mouth. This is completely public data. You can look it up yourself. And I've actually gone to the county register and looked up myself. So it looks like what really happened was back before this bubble burst, as it bursted, all these mom and pop banks, I call them mom and pop banks, really small banks, basically went bankrupt overnight. All right. So these small local banks in these towns and cities, they basically went bankrupt because they were attached to all this toxic mortgage-backed security debt. Okay. So big banks, Bank of America, larger banks had to come in and buy these banks. So what happened what really happened was in this scenario was this poor lady, her husband died. Apparently there's a little bit of, drama with this that I'm not aware about, but he died, okay? And his name was he was the owner of this particular property. So what should have happened and what would have happened is he had this home in what is called a revocable and an irrevocable trust. Okay, a revocable trust in simple terms is why he's alive. He can change things about it. Okay, he can change any type of, I want my house to go to this person, that person, my wife, whatever. An irrevocable trust is something that is not changeable. You cannot change it, right? But in any case, when he dies, it becomes a irrevocable trust where whatever he said with that home goes to who that person he assigns it to. All right. So that obviously was not in place because it simply would have gone to her. She could have made the payments to it. She could have avoided probate court, and we could be sitting here today not making a video. But that's not what happened. It looks like in 2010, this home, 408 Garfield Avenue, Nunn, Colorado, actually fell into delinquency and actually went into foreclosure. Okay, so the whole news story and viral part about this was the sympathy of she could have made the payments. It said that she could have made the payments, but then at the end of the video it said she paid $60,000 to attorney fees, and it kind of is like there's kind of a buildup of emotion. By the time you reach that point, most people are just kind of feeling bad for the lady losing her house. But in reality, if we take a legal kind of framework behind this, and we kind of think about the statutes, the processes on how these foreclosures take place, we can kind of rationalize what probably really happened. So what should have happened was the trust thing I just mentioned. But if not, what should have happened was her and her family should have basically deposited money into an escrow account while going through the probate process, and then going into that probate process saying, hey, I took this escrow money, we didn't have a living revocable trust in place, and I've put this money aside to keep current on the payments. But it looks like what happened was the house went into foreclosure in 2010, and that wasn't what happened. So if it doesn't matter what the scenario is of somebody's passing, they can die, whatever doesn't make that mortgage obligation, that starts the foreclosure process. Okay, it's basically how the mortgages work and stuff. So what should have happened is they should have gone to probate. They should have had the money in an escrow, and then pleaded with the courts to move this into a process and procedure where she takes over the remaining 14 or 15 years on the loan. I think she said it was a 15-year loan. So now where does this viral video kind of get interesting, and kind of where it kind of loses its credibility is at the beginning of the video. There was kind of a stipulation. I actually left a comment on here, and it says, in the beginning of the video, it said that she did not pay the loan. Then at the end, she was able to pay the loan. So it was contradictory just in a 3-minute video that I watched, that she tried to pay the loan and now she can't. But really, rather than spending all those attorney fees to try to stall the process, the 16 years she didn't make a payment on the home, maybe the appropriate thing that I would have done is put money into an escrow account, go through the legal process of getting the courts to reach an agreement to put that money towards the loan, make it whole. And the reason it took so long, and let me jump into this too, was the reason that this is such a long, dragged out thing is because there were so many mortgages back in this point in time. All right, just to put it in perspective. In 2020, 2021, and 2022, there were 20 or 40,000 of these same incidences on the internet, all right, on Zillow, where people were occupying these homes from 2008, 9, 2007, and not making any payments on these homes for over a decade, just to put everything in perspectives. Now, there's a lot, the way they've restructured the legal framework on how the banks repossess these homes, she's probably one of the last of a handful, like maybe, I don't know, if I had to guess, probably a few minimal hundred, maybe a little over 1,000. Again, I guess there's not many of these left, because some states, the way the processes have changed since the COVID pandemic. Remember, we had you couldn't evict anybody, right? That applied to people that had mortgages or were in a foreclosure process. So it extended it even longer. And then now some states have rewritten their laws in Colorado, like you have to go and you can actually request a jury trial before you're formally foreclosed. But my opinion, what will happen is an investor is simply going to buy the home because she does not own the home anymore. The reason she thinks she owns the home is because when this real estate bubble happened, the promissory note, okay, the promissory note, right, for the home, for the who owns the wedding note, was passed around to so many banks that the banks did not have a location on these wet ink documents, right? So that is why you could say, oh, well, you can't prove that this bank that is no longer in existence, I owe a debt to get the title to my home. So people were going through the courts. They were using the court processes to basically stay in these homes for decades. And that's exactly what happened. In reality, what will happen is an investor or somebody will buy the home, and they will go through the formal process to evict the lady in the video. And she likely will be evicted fairly quickly because even if you go to jury trial, you know, it's going to be a kind of a cut and dry case. She didn't make the remaining payments to the loan. So that's my kind of comment. And you know, I left a comment on this video. It looks like it's on Next 9 News. It popped up on my screen. I know it's getting a lot of attention, and I just kind of want people to look into this video, kind of learn more about this, and maybe give me some feedback on what you think. I mean, is it right? You know, is it wrong? You know, obviously she was upset about it, but did she pay the loan on the house, or is she now able to pay it? There's just a lot of stuff that seems to be left out during the video. It kind of just seems to go viral because it kind of paints the bank as the bad guy and the woman as the victim, which is probably not really the entire story. She's probably going off emotion. The banks are probably going off legal proceeding or procedures. And that gray area is kind of where the viral momentum has been gathered. So drop it in the comments. I want to let you know what you think. Let me know what you think of these zombie foreclosures. You know, this isn't the only one. I've seen homes in other states, not here locally in California, but I've seen homes in other states that are selling foreclosure homes with people still in them because there's no interior photos. So the realtor's not going to, you know, essentially break into the home to take photos. So this is not as common as it was, but for the longest time, these were all over the place. All right, we'll catch you guys soon. Take care.